FTF and Derek here. We're going to go over the waivers real quick, as well as just talk a little bit about the recent news. I mean, we talked a bit about it in the last episode. Obviously, Devontae Adams getting traded to the Jets, Amari Cooper getting traded to the Bills, what this means for all four teams involved. Derek, if you kind of want to kick it off since your team is, heavily involved.
Yeah, obviously, with Devontae departing the Raiders and he'd been missing the past couple weeks, Brock Bowers his involvement was already massive. And I think this just solidifies that it's going to stay massive the entirety of the season, if not potentially increase a little bit more. Devontae was by far the most talented player on the Raiders. Brock Bowers is a second to what was Devontae's position. Now he steps into that number one role. I genuinely am excited to see Jacoby Myers. Where we got Jacoby in drafts was crazy late. He is now a wide receiver one. He is a decent player. I don't think he's has the talent of a wide receiver one, but he will be playing that role. Whether it's Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew, he's going to be the number two target and realistically the only trusted target outside of Brock Bowers. So if you're needing wide receiver depth and there's someone that has Jacoby stashed deep, I think he can be a solid pickup. Or if you had him on your roster, I think he can actually bring some fantasy value that we did not see from him before.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I had Jacoby Myers right now, the first thing I'd look to do is, maybe try to trade him to somebody who needs wide receiver depth,
Mm-hmm.
just because, like, with this news, regardless of what's actually going to happen, it's going to be thought that he is going to start producing a bit more for fantasy purposes.
Yep.
Whether or not he does in that role is to be determined. But the vacated targets with Devontae being gone for sure, I mean, that's a real thing. So, I mean, just with that, I'd say with it up in the air, I'd be looking to trade him away and see what I could get. Obviously, not for pennies or anything. If I could get, like, a decent depth piece at running back or whatever needs you may have if you could fill those. But as far as Brock Bowers, we were talking about it earlier. I believe this sets him up to finish as tight end one um,
Yeah.
this season. I mean, he's already sitting at tight end two right now. It's not some crazy statement, but I mean, I just see him at least getting like 10 targets a game. And I don't think that's outlandish
Yeah.
to say. He is the best talent on this offense at this point. So moving forward, if you have Brock Bowers, this is great for you.
Yeah.
Um, looking, I mean, not going to talk too much about the Jets because I think we covered a bit of that in our last episode.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, realistically, Devontae's going to go and be the number one target there in an offense where Garrett Wilson has had a very good last 2 weeks, but he has been getting by for the most part because he has the most targets in the NFL so far this year.
Yeah.
So that's definitely going to change. We'll see how it shakes up this coming week. Devontae does plan to play. Still starting Garrett Wilson. I mean, if
Oh yeah.
anything, I mean, the passing volume might stay high enough to where they're both able to eat significantly well. But it's just interesting to watch looking forward. I think it will make the offense better overall.
For sure. For sure. And yeah, the Jets, that's crazy exciting for them. I think it shows, segueing to Amari Cooper, I think it shows the Browns are, I don't want to say in tank mode, but that you just traded away your number one receiver. Obviously, with his departure, and we talked about it some, David Njoku through the air has already shown he's Deshaun Watson's potential favorite outside of Amari. I think he is going to take that step up. It makes Jerry Jeudy a bit more viable. You assume he's going to get a little bit more targets. And then the return of Nick Chubb, I'm just it's weird that it almost couldn't come at a worse time. Only because like you just traded your number one weapon and now you're bringing back Nick Chubb off a very serious injury. So now I'm sitting here like, well, how quick are the Browns going to force him into that? What does he really have to come back to? What are they playing for? I think it's a lot of questions on that Browns offense. As long as Deshaun's at the helm, David Njoku gets a bump, but dude, he has not looked good. We've talked about it. He hasn't thrown 200 yards in a game. So we'll have to see going
Yeah,
forward.
it just does. I mean, I think the one I'm most excited for, at least on the Browns offense, is David Njoku.
Yeah,
You saw in this past game with Amari Cooper still on the team, he got 7 targets, caught 5 of them for 31. But with this, I mean, it's not like they got anybody back. That is a whole lot of vacant. I think Amari Cooper was number 4 in targets in the NFL at
I
this
believe
point.
it.
So it's a whole bunch of vacated targets. I mean, David Njoku's only rostered in 66% of leagues on Sleeper. If you're able to go out and get him, I think he definitely has at least the path to a top 5 tight end rest of season. Just because of all the
Yeah,
vacated targets, similar to Brock Bowers. And like I said, he got 7 with Amari still there. Now Amari's leaving. It's a whole bunch of targets up for grabs. Yes, some for Jerry Judy, but I mean, we've already seen the connection that David Njoku and Deshaun Watson have. While it might not come for the most yards, a lot of targets and receptions will feed families in a PPR setting, especially in this tight end economy, as we love to put it.
yeah,
Um, for the Bills, I think it's really simple. It gives Josh Allen the number one receiver that he's kind of been needing. As far as what it's going to do to Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, they're not going to be those. I mean, they might have spike games here and there, but I think it's going to be Amari Cooper. I think it honestly might help Dalton Kincaid a little bit because
yeah,
they're not going to be able to focus on him quite as much. But we'll see how it goes moving forward. I mean, I think it changes things with Kincaid kind of the least. I don't know how much that really affects him, but
yeah.
I think it opens up the offense a little bit more and gives them more opportunities to score. And obviously, it hurts Shakir and Coleman if you were hoping for,
Yeah.
like, especially like a late season breakout for Coleman. I think it's going to be Amari Cooper
Yeah,
now.
and Shakir, I don't even want to say the most because looking at his stats on the season, Shakir the first 4 weeks when he was double digits every week was 3 targets, 5, 6, and 5. I I think he'll still be right around there. It's just he was Josh Allen's number one target. If they stick to the game plan they've been sticking to, it's going to be Amari Cooper as the number one target, obviously. So those Shakir targets could drop from 5 or 6 to 3 to 4 a game unless they start, passing the ball more. But yeah, it's definitely great news if you had Amari Cooper and if you had any of the Bills receivers, especially Keon Coleman. I almost feel like it's dang near droppable offense because he already has not produced very much, and that just that's just a dagger, dude. That's
Yeah, and it's like
tough.
if anything, I'm holding on just to like see like if it does open up things for him later on, if he's able to succeed in that number 2 role, kind of similar to how Gabe Davis was able to from times.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, especially with him being a rookie, it's like I'll wait and see. I'm more inclined to, but yeah, it's kind of tough.
yeah. I'm sure we have more trades to come, but those two are. I mean, that's two bombs. To be fair, I'm sure you're not excited
Oh
about
yeah.
either of them as a Ravens fan. Two potential threats in the AFC both get a wide receiver one.
Well, to be fair, I mean, it's nice that we have already played the Bills. It's also nice that we haven't yet played the Browns, so taking away Amari Cooper for them when we have to play them twice, he's always a problem, as you know, very talented receiver when he's on the field. But so I mean, in a sense, yeah, but in a sense, no, because taking away Amari for 2 games, that is
And it's a
very,
problem. It's a problem much later down the line, like playoffs
yeah,
down the line. So, if it even gets there for the matchups.
yeah, and we'll see how that runs its course. But with that, I think we will go into the waiver wire.
Mm-hmm.
Which, as we talked about, or we might have talked about before the top of the episode, that there are only 2 teams on bye this week, being the Chicago Bears and the Dallas Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had been streaming Caleb Williams, you're not going to do that this week. If you were unfortunate enough to be playing Dak last week, you get to take a break from that this week and kind of take a breath.
Yeah.
Other than that, you should have your starter. But I think one guy to really take a look at if you're not going to have Dak or Caleb is, you know, an easy one, yes, but Brock Purdy. I mean, currently sitting at the QB8. He's rostered in 89% of leagues. You might be in one where he's not rostered. Going up against Kansas City. It's a tough defense, yes, but I mean, it should be a decent football game. And
Yeah.
you'd hope with Ayuk, Debo, and Kittle out there, he's able to do enough to get at least like 18 to 20 fantasy points is
Yeah.
kind of what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. Sam Darnold comes back from bye. He obviously had that abysmal performance against the Jets, but outside of that, he'd been very solid. He plays Detroit. We just saw what the Cowboys did. I think the Vikings will fare much better. Their defense is much better to keep them in this one. I don't mind the Sam Darnold start. I think he can be a solid streaming option as well. He is 60% rostered, so there's, 40% chance he is available if needed.
Yeah, I mean, another option that I think should work out this week is Geno Smith taking on Atlanta in Atlanta. Um, had a tough one against San Francisco last week at home, but I mean, I do think he has the capability to bounce back, especially with the weapons that he has. Also, this one is look, it's kind of nasty. It's in London. It's the 6:30 game, but Jacksonville's defense has been horrible. I
Yeah.
mean, if there's a week that you want to take a shot on it, we saw him throw 3 touchdowns last week against Houston. Granted, the turnovers were a problem, but like I said, Jacksonville's defense hasn't been very daunting. And the next 3 matchups are New York, Tennessee, and Chicago. So if there's a week, this
It's
is the
this
one.
week. You're not wrong.
Drake May. I mean, if you want to take the shot, it's there. And then I think Bo Nix. It's tough because it's on Thursday, but against New Orleans, yes, they're struggling with a backup quarterback, but yes, they're struggling with a backup quarterback. They're going up against the Broncos defense, which has been very good. I think Bo Nix will have the opportunity to put some points on the board, if at the very least not with his legs.
Yeah.
So I think there's something possibly there. The decent streaming option, he's put up at least 20 points in back-to-back games. So
Here's my
that
super high risk. Dude, I think Daniel Jones is going to have a solid week fantasy wise, especially with
again,
Malik coming back.
yeah, against the Eagles, I don't hate that at all. And I mean, I kind of thought you were gonna say Andy Dalton.
I was looking right at him too.
I mean, there are decent options this week, and a part of the reason why I look so deeply at it, I mean, you have like I've been talking about Kyler Murray going up against the Chargers, and I
Hmm.
mean, Kyler, I feel like he's a guy that you almost have to continue to stay in the flames with because the week you bench him is going to be the week that just because he has that rushing potential, it's not like he's a pocket passer where everything's going downhill for him. It could change on the flip of a dime any given week.
Him
So it's a bit
specifically,
tough to.
though, pay attention to Marv and
No,
James
yeah, and it's
Conner.
very likely
They're
it's
both
very
banged
likely
up.
that Marv is going to miss. But no, and it's just like a realistic option. I mean, take like Brock Purdy in that game against Kansas City or Geno Smith against Atlanta. And like I said, even Drake May against Jacksonville, they're just some options that you might want to look at
Yeah.
with a little bit more upside. Whereas, like you said, Kyler with his number one option out and then taking away James Conner from that offense, which he is clearly a very big part of.
Yeah. But I mean, that's it for the quarterbacks. Like we're not missing two. We're missing Dak and Caleb. Caleb probably wasn't starting in too many leagues. He was more of a, you know. I mean, if you want to touch on, I know we talked about it before, but Schiff had mentioned if you were planning on wanting Caleb, this is the week to do so, not next week. If you have the roster spot, get him now. Keep him through the bye because he's going to be much more of a hot commodity next week once he's actually showing a projection.
No, definitely. Now is the week to stash him, and he might end up being. He's coming on right now. Already had one QB 1 week with 30 points. He might
Hmm.
end up being a guy that helps you win your league later on down.
Yeah.
You never know. And the Bears look like they're playing for something right now.
Yeah.
All right, going into the running backs.
It's a lot more disgusting than the quarterbacks. A lot more disgusting.
It really is. I mean, I everybody's going to have their eye on Sean Tucker, obviously coming off of that 14 carries for 136 yards and a touchdown. Like we talked about, he also added the 3 catches for 56 and another touchdown, 34.2 points. He was the running back one on the week. Definitely paying attention to Rashad White's health in this one, and they're going up against the Ravens, who are currently like the number one defense against running backs. So it's
Yeah.
just a tough week to expand the, I guess, number of heads in the backfield that might be relevant.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we turn this to a from a two-headed monster into now a possible three-headed monster, which if the offense is consistently putting up points and moving the ball, that's great. But if the running backs aren't able to get involved, I mean, we'll see how it goes. It's just not really a week that I'm super excited to, even if Rashad White isn't going to play,
Spend up on
two
him.
guys splitting carries against Baltimore.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's going to sound like a homer statement, but they are very good against running backs, and it would just be tough.
Yeah. It,
Um,
like the guys at the top, like I see Ty Chandler, obviously Schiff had dropped the bomb. They did get Cam Akers. Aaron Jones is probably going to be back, even if he misses. We saw against the Jets when Ty Chandler got extended time. And he really only week 2 against San Francisco, he looked good. All the other weeks, like he has been very inefficient on the ground. They're playing Detroit. Again, they did lose Aiden Hutchinson, but he's not a guy like I would pick up and consider starting this week. And that's if Aaron Jones is out. And then obviously when Aaron Jones comes back, he goes back to being, pretty irrelevant, unless a handcuff at the very least. It's tough, dude. It's really tough. You know who the sleeper is on this wire for the running backs?
I mean, I don't know. You're going to say Ray Davis?
I was going to say Isaac Guerrero if Jordan Mason can't go.
Yeah, it's just against Kansas City, so it'd be tough. They have been
Yeah.
very good against running backs.
Yeah.
So
He's just the only like for comparison, like Dearness Johnson is at the top of this list. He's projected 8.8. Everyone and their mother just spent up on Tank Bigsby 1 week ago because they're like, oh, it's going to be Tank Bigsby. And then for whatever reason, Dearness Johnson gets the bulk of the play this past week. Now everyone's like, oh, it's Dearness Johnson. And if you go out and spend up on Dearness Johnson, it's just
yeah.
there's too much inconsistency there. Like you don't know. You really just don't know. It's just a tough one for me to tell you to spend up on, especially a guy that's been
Yeah,
in the
and then
league that long and never
I
really.
mean, other than that, really just like Jalen Warren is available, and he's rostered in 41% of leagues. If we want to kind of take the shot on him, possibly like as he works back, being able to get some of that passing down work, we don't really know exactly what it's going to look like as Russell comes back or as Russell is turned into the starter, rather. But so, I mean, that's a little more speculative, along with like Damian Pierce. I think we know now that should Joe Mixon miss again, Damian Pierce is going to kind of be the guy that takes over in that
Yeah,
backfield. Um, but that's really all for running backs. Moving over to wide receivers, obviously the ad of the week is going to be Demario Pop Douglas.
yeah.
Um, double digits in his last two, and then in his last game, he went over 20 points, scoring 21.2, getting a touchdown. Obviously, looking like a good option with Drake May having the ability to actually sling the ball in New England. And then other than that, I mean, I like Rashad Bateman as kind of a stash and a guy that can get you some points on any
I
real given
agree.
week.
The first time, I will agree with you. Rashad Bateman, you're not wrong. This year has been fairly consistent, and this one against Tampa Bay, I I don't mind it. He has been solid.
Yeah, I mean, he had the one really bad week against Buffalo, but if you watch that game, they absolutely dismantled the Bills and ran all over them.
Yeah,
Other than that, 7.3, 7, 11.8, 3.3, 15.8, 11.1. It's better than we've seen out of Rashad Bateman in recent history,
for sure.
currently sitting at wide receiver 46. So, I mean, nothing crazy, nothing spectacular, but serviceable. Other than that, I mean, I guess if you want to take a look at guys like Elijah Moore and his possible new role with the Browns,
Yeah,
DJ Turner with the Raiders, a guy I brought up is Devon Bailey. I mean,
I
for
like
some odd reason,
him the most.
in the only two games that he has had with the Broncos, the first one he got 8 targets, caught all 8 of them for 39. This past one had 6 targets, caught 4 of them for 78. Was injured the last 4 games. Came first game 11.9, comes back 11.8. He's a rookie. I mean, it's a possible option.
Yeah, his big advantage over other rookies is he's 26. So it's
Yes.
like, he's not, for the sake of NFL terms, Braylon Allen is a baby coming into the NFL. He's 20 years old going against grown men. Devon Vele is already a grown man. So the physicality aspect, he's 6'5", and Bo Nix has found him. Yeah, I think if you don't get Pop, Rashad Bateman, you want to roll the dice on Elijah Moore. I'm telling you right now, as a Raider fan, DJ Turner is not going to be it. Please, I know he's going to get increased workload.
It's just a name.
Yeah, he's going to be out there. That's one thing. He will be out there a lot. But, you know, Devon Vele, I do think, can be a sleeper addition. Josh Reynolds is on the IR. He's not just
Yeah.
out. So he is going to miss extended time. Oh, the tight ends. So what? We're missing Cole Kmet and Jake Ferguson this week.
Two pretty big ones.
Yeah,
Like I said, if Njoku's out there, please go get him. He could definitely. Yeah, I think of all the guys, he has one that has potential to finish, if not top 10, or if not top 5, at the very least top 10. Other than that, I think no Fant's a decent play this week against Atlanta, and then Kate Otten against Baltimore.
dude, my boy. Old man Ertz, dude. He's still only 36% rostered. If you miss out on sweepstakes, you need a last second guy. I'm going to say it every week till he really falls off.
Yeah.
10.8 against Baltimore. They go against Carolina. He could be another solid option that should not burn you completely. But yeah, David Njoku should be at the absolute top of your list if he's available.
And then, I mean, coming off of he scored a touchdown in the last game. Granted, touchdowns aren't a sticky stat, but 5 targets, caught 3 of them for 41. We've seen production out of this guy before, going up against an awful defense in Jacksonville. Talked about we like the quarterback start, Hunter Henry in London.
I don't mind
It's
that.
not the prettiest. It's pretty disgusting, in fact, but it's a possibility to get some points at the tight end position.
For sure. New quarterback. All we have to go off with him is one game, 5 targets, 3 catches, 41 yards, and a tutty. That's what he's done with Drake May. So,
Yeah. No, we're not going to talk kickers, but defenses, I mean, you got Buffalo rostered at 51% going up against Tennessee, who has been turnover prone. Will Levis has looked terrible. One thing I'd be scared of is Buffalo hasn't been the best against the rush, and Tony Pollard has looked pretty decent. Cincinnati against Cleveland, who has looked absolutely ridiculously awful. They were actually able to log 2 sacks and an interception last week, so that was able to help them. You have the Rams against the Raiders, which isn't exactly the best one, but they were able to be pretty disruptive against Green Bay,
yeah, it's fair.
and the Raiders have been
Not
iffy
good.
on offense at best. And then you have the Denver Broncos, granted, rostered 71%, but if you have the possibility to get them going up against rookie quarterback Spencer Rattler, sure, in New Orleans, but the Broncos defense has been good, whereas Spencer Rattler did not look good at all.
Yeah. It's not the greatest week for waiver wires, let's be honest. There's options out there. There's a potential couple guys that could really make a difference, but don't dive too deep into the waiver wire to replace a guy, especially if that waiver wire, that deep dive, isn't someone you're going to consider playing. Keep a guy on
Yeah.
your roster you still have confidence in, even if he's on bye or whatever the case, over a guy you're diving a little too deep for. Just keep that in mind.
No, yeah, I agree. And another thing is pay attention to at obviously every time someone's added, someone must be dropped
Yep.
unless someone was put on IR. But in most cases, someone was dropped to add the waiver pickup of the week. Go see who was dropped. You know, you might end up getting like how you got Christian Watson for free.
Yeah.
Uh, these things happen. I mean, I didn't know about his health. I had to make a play. I played Slayton. Slayton got me 11. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Going back,
That's a good
I was
example
the
though.
one who
Like a
drafted
guy,
Watson.
yeah, like a guy like Christian Watson, I'm going to hold on my roster. I'm not going to play him per se, but I'm going to hold him before I drop him and roll the dice on like a Devon Vele or something like that.
No,
So like
definitely, definitely.
that's a good example though
But
of
there are
that.
people who will like, panic off of any kind of performance this past week.
Yeah.
And
Like a
yeah.
Jalen Tolbert. And now he's on bye and they're going to be like, "Oh, I should drop Jalen Tolbert and pick up like a Devon Vele." I would still potentially
Or
keep Jalen
yeah,
Tolbert.
like Roma Dunze scored 6 points going
Yep.
on by. Someone might panic and drop him. Something along those lines, but that's what we're saying to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And with that, my good people,
Another
good luck
week.
on the waivers. If you got to spend up, spend up. Don't really think this is the week for it, but if you got to do it, you have holes in your roster that you need to fix, then you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
So, all right, everyone. Uh, thank you for tuning in once again. Like I said, hope it goes well for you. Derek, you got anything to add?
No, I just hope you have better luck in fantasy than I do. I wish that for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we could wish that for each other this week as we're playing each other. May
I hope you
the
have the
least
worst
awful
luck.
team win. I mean,
No, I'm
we don't
kidding.
really. I don't think either one of us really have to hope for that at this point.
Yeah,
I think
what you said's
the
probably
healthy
the
team will
truth.
probably win. Yeah, the least horrible team is probably going to win. So good luck to each of us and the rest of you. And as we say every time, come back next time. Take more reps with the first team.
Yes, sir.